Well, all right, all
Oh,
right, all right. We are looking better every day, you guys. This is episode 4 with my esteemed colleague, co-host Charles Riccardi. Always a pleasure to be here with you, man.
oh man.
And
Always
just so
pleasure's mine.
excited. I'm trying to get fancier with the lighting here. Got the mic going, and
Yeah,
feeling a little more
beautiful.
professional. And I owe it to Charles. Gives me great feedback. We give each other awesome feedback, and it's just been
We
so
do.
great to connect. Like we're both we I just want to remind everybody we have such a different background, Charles and I.
Yeah.
Like it's really exciting to hear
Yeah.
where he's come from. Like he's self-taught. I have formal training, like the whole 4-year college thing. Like and you work at a job, and I just well, you do a little bit of freelance, but I do strictly freelance. Like just a lot of
Yeah.
cool differences, and exciting topic today where we also have very different experience. But before I get to the topic, we gotta break some ice, of course. We want to catch up. How was your weekend, man? Like, do anything exciting with the kids, or
Yeah, it
um
was good. Yeah, it was pretty chill. We actually did we do that this weekend? I think we did. Yeah,
I know
this
we got
weekend
rain.
that
We
yeah,
got a little rain.
we did it last week. Yeah, we got a little rain. We went to the UCLA gymnastics
Mhm.
meet. I don't know, or we went to a game basically. It's probably
Mhm.
not a game, it's a match.
A
Well, so
game
whatever it is.
match. If you're British,
Okay.
it's match. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
it was so fun because Melanie and I used to live in San Francisco, where also our daughter was born, and we used to go to San Francisco Giants games all the time, and it was like part of a regular routine for us. It was so fun, and we really missed that like energy that when you're in the stadium and you're getting terrible food, and it's like just such a cool experience, and we really missed that, and like this
Yeah,
brought like a little bit of that back, like it was insane, man. Every time a gymnast would do like one little thing or whatever, everyone in the
yeah,
crowd was like, yeah. It was so weird because I'm
yeah,
used to watching the Olympics where everything's like very, like the person does the thing. No, you don't like, no one cheers. Everyone's like very professional,
yeah.
make sure they do their routine. It was so
Watching
funny.
golf.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Funny.
100%. 100%. But yeah, it was great. It was super fun. What
That's
about you?
awesome.
What'd you get up
Well,
to?
we got a little rained in too. I'm like, what a wet season this is, man. This is just crazy.
So
So
cold too.
cold. I don't know if I told you I got a brother. So the family name, the family trade, Curtis,
Hmm.
is roofing. And
Really?
my dad, he mastered it for like 45 years. Still works a little bit, tiny bit, but he trained one of my
Wow.
brothers. I'm one of 7, so there's 6 boys, so I have 5 brothers. And one of my brothers took on the family trade of roofing. And guess what he specializes in? Uh, Leak repairs. Roof leak repairs. He doesn't do new roofs. Like if you need a new roof, you call someone else.
No
And
way.
he is making an absolute killing right now. He says that he has to say no to work. Like he just gets he's
Wow.
gotten hundreds of calls like this. So his secret is he works with condominium complexes,
Okay.
and so these property management companies just call him left and right to do repairs for the roofs. And so this, of course, is an exceptionally wet season, and when it just rains hard even once or twice during a rainy season, like the phone is just ringing off the hook. So he's had to say no to a lot of work. I don't know if you watch South
That's
Park, but he
incredible.
if you don't watch South Park, he has or he had me watch this one episode. I don't really watch it regularly, but when
Yeah.
I do like a laugh. So
When I
uh
dabble.
I do like to dabble a little bit. And it's so he had me watch this episode about the handymen becoming billionaires because of AI. Have you heard of that episode at all? It's
Mm-mm.
really funny because like all the like blue, I guess white collar, whatever, however you want to describe it, like middle class, upper middle class jobs that
Yeah.
in this episode they're greatly affected by the advent, the onset of AI, and like how it's disrupting industries, and everybody who basically touches a computer is like out of a job overnight. But who is benefiting from all this? Skilled laborers, right? I guess people like my brother who's a river is so there is like a shortage of people in this space, like this kind of talent. And they're just people who don't mind picking up a hammer and doing some hard labor, right? So
Yeah.
but in this episode, it talks a lot about just the heady men just become filthy rich because there's not a lot of people to do the work, and everybody's out of work, but they know that they need repairs, and they didn't take time to learn these skills. And so they're forced into paying exorbitant
That's
amounts of cash.
incredible.
And
That is
the
incredible.
handyman, oh, it's so good. It's so great. They start driving like stretch limos and they wear like Gucci sunglasses. The handyman, it's just the funniest thing. So if anybody out
That's
there
awesome.
likes South Park, I know it's kind of some people, they don't like it so much. It's definitely a bit offensive, but if you can stand it, if you like a good laugh, I highly recommend that episode. I was dying laughing.
Nice.
So we got a cool subject today, or topic subject. The subject, I
Sure.
guess, is always design. But so today we're gonna talk a bit about recruiters. Oh, did I
Sweet.
cut out a little bit there? Oh, my video
Oh.
went off. How interesting. Oh, I was trying to get fancy with my iPhone today, so maybe it's
Technical
actually watching the video.
difficulties.
Oh, there it goes. See now my dreary self again. Oh, we're gonna just try this one more time, and then if it becomes an issue, hopefully we can even like
No
edit
worries.
this out. That would be fancy. Yeah, look,
Yeah.
it just went away. Okay, we're just gonna roll what we got. So, okay, I've switched views here. Yes, recruiters. All right, back to recruiters. Very cool topic because after chatting with Charles a little bit, we realized that we have a very different perception and experience with it. To the point where we're like, wait, what is the normal? So I wanted to maybe we could talk a little bit about your experience with recruiters. Mine's a bit more lengthy, and let's kind of. And what's interesting too is your background in it is what I had originally thought working with a recruiter was like, more like in the headhunter sense, right? So let's hear a little bit about your experience working and getting hired with a recruiter before I go into it.
Yeah, totally. I'll go quickly. So when we were in the Bay Area in San Francisco, met a lot of people, started working at startups, and ended up working with a couple of recruiters here and there that were mainly obviously headhunters for full-time positions at tech companies. But then came across this one recruiter that my friend Aubrey had used before, and her name was Amy Jackson. She had herself as her business, and she was just a design recruiter. So that's all that she did. All she did was basically get referrals from other designers that she had partnered with, if anyone needed a job, and she would go and talk with the designer. Hey, what is it that you're into? What do you like working on? Et cetera, et cetera. Talked with her, and then she would go and she had a portfolio of companies that she would go and chat with and find ones that were a good fit, and then have me go in and chat with them. And it was cool. And she would take whatever. The way that her model worked is that she would always take a percentage of whatever the salary was that you were going to get. So it was great because the incentive was both on her side. The incentive worked for both her and me. So she would go in and say, well, if I can get this guy a really good salary, it means that I get paid more because I always get, X percent of whatever that salary was. So then I would get a job and I'd be happy, she'd be happy, and the people would be happy too. And she was just always really focused on people. She was really good with people. So she was really focused on making sure that the fit was right. Not just that the person got a job, but that like she would focus on my personality, like who I was, like, and not just what my design skills were. And so that was, I think, it felt very different from any other kind of recruiting experience that I'd had in the past. And so it was neat. And I think the reason why she's successful is just like we were talking about with productized services, is it's very niche. Like her way of doing it and going about it was very niche compared to like maybe some of your experiences, which was like an agency of people working on and working for, designers and trying to get people jobs and stuff. She could just handle everything herself. Her overhead was super low, and then it would work out. So that was kind of generally my experience with recruiters.
Awesome. And was that just one time she placed you at a job?
3, I think.
3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's a really solid recruiter, man. That's a great person to have in your corner. And I definitely will say that sounds like the better way to go about it is working more with a headhunter. I wish I had more opportunities like that. The reason I call it headhunter is that's just like kind of like the slang or like the typical way of labeling it in this manner, how you work with a recruiter. But okay, so let's talk a little bit where I come from it. And even today, I get a lot of offers from recruiters in this other way, which is like you were saying, working with an agency. So I actually have over 9 years experience working with recruiting agencies. I'll drop a couple companies that are here, at least based in LA. I know that they're probably, I know Creative Circle has a big influence in Los Angeles, but Aquint is another big one. And I think they're nationwide. Oh man, there's so many that I'm actually just spacing on right at the top of my head, but I'll try to see if they come in later on in this. But I've worked with probably 20 companies. One's another one comes to mind is Otterbase, and oh my gosh, there's so many. So I go back to 2015 when I was dirt broke. I'm very entrepreneurial. My wife and I have tried to start and run many businesses. We probably failed, I think, 9 times in business. And so this is when we're living in Florida. We each had our own separate business because we just weren't strong enough in our marriage to work together just yet. Like we just drove each other nuts. We were in our 20s. We had too much ego. Well, maybe it's mostly me. Well, so we were having hard times. We had our second kid and we were just ready for a change. Like, oh my gosh. When you have 2 kids, it's not twice as hard, it's 4 times harder. That's what I tell everybody. And especially if they're really close in age. Like they're almost on the dot. Like they have the same birth month and they're about 2 years apart. So my son was born and he changed everything. And we were just so stressed. So we're like, we need to change. Let's close these businesses. Let's move back from Florida to California. Like, because why wouldn't you just move across the country again? It was nuts. But we were just broke because we were trying to run businesses, didn't have crazy steady jobs at the time. And her actual business at that time was a wildlife rescue. I implore you to check out her journey, Jenny Curtis. She's got an interesting background working with animals, and that's where her e-commerce business is centered around today. But look, not about her, it's about me in this podcast, right? And you, of course. So we moved across the country, which was insane. We didn't get rid of any of our animals. We bought our pets, our kids, of course, because we had to. And but we were so broke. We were living at my mom's, and I was just really wanting to change too. I was doing graphic design for a long time. So my formal training is in graphic design, corporate branding, typography, like the whole 9 yards, graphic design principles. Yeah. And that was from Cal Poly in California. Go Mustangs. And so that was it was a nice career, but I just, for logo design, poster design, even like typographic art and stuff, that stuff's cool. But I just really, I don't know. It just wasn't my jam. There's always something missing where I always wanted to know the value of what I created. And a lot of that is subjective in art and graphic design. And certainly so with clients who are like, no, don't make it blue, make it pink. Or my wife doesn't like that. Please change it. I'm like, all right. So what was really tough for me is that you just really couldn't really know what the consequences could be from a design change. And that's where as soon as I heard of something like UX design, I was like, whoa, that sounds really cool. So even in Florida, I was looking into it, but we decided to move back to California. And so I just really kind of just went heavy in it. And so I recommend anybody getting in a new career, just become a sponge. Only study that thing. I mean, like,
good advice.
Feed yourself, sleep, but other than that, like, just take it. Just you are what you eat, right? Like, just completely immerse yourself in that. And I did everything I could to even do courses on it, of what few courses are out there, because it was a very new field in 2015. This was, and so. But it was still a struggle because going from a graphic designer to UX designer is very different. I like to say to people, it's like going from brain surgery to heart surgery, or heart surgery to brain surgery. It's surgery, but it's vastly different. Just so much not the same. Although, we can argue, like, with today's full stack designers, it's definitely much more expected these days to have to be an R&D person in one.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm living at my mom's with my kids in my 20s, my late 20s. I'm just really, or early 30s at that point, just really broke and trying to find a job in UX. I even got a job as a sales trainer at a sign manufacturing company. And that was an interesting experience. I just needed work, and I was just doing it because I have kids. I got to support my kids. And so Yeah, I just got this job. I had to wear a suit this job. Hate wearing suits. Yeah. That's why I love being a designer. There's no requirement for
Oh,
dress code really. Just have a shirt on and you're good.
hey man.
So we're so that job was interesting because they wanted me to like train their traditional business model of door-to-door salespeople. This is even 2015 where like door-to-door sales was like a long time ago, kind of a business that people really didn't really want anymore. They didn't want strangers to walk in their door at a place of business and try to sell them on a $20,000 sign. Although these signs probably could give them more business. So I was there a few months and then I decided, you know what? I'm going to pitch them this wild idea. And you bet what I had created was like a, I guess you could call it more like a screen flow, sort of a user journey, but it was like a screen by screen flow of this vision that I had of their, pivoting into a direct to consumer sales, online sales company. It was
Amazing, dude.
real.
That's
I thought a
awesome.
fantastic idea. They
So
weren't ready
cool.
for it. They weren't ready for
Yeah.
it, and so shortly after that, they let me go, and they said, I remember the CEO. He said, "Josh, you're a brilliant guy, but this place is just not for you." I just really knew then and there that UX was the thing for me. All right, so but in parallel, even at that job, I was looking for work, couldn't find anything. It was a struggle, huge struggle, and I'm just like stressed as heck. Living at my mom's, and
Yeah.
so then I just, I was like, I'm going to just post on Facebook. Obviously, Facebook at that time was all the rage. I'm just put something out there and just let everybody know, hey, here's my struggle. So I said, hey, I've been looking to try to get in this career for a few months, and it's been tough. And I had a really good friend from college, and his name is Jeff, and really nice guy. I just want to shout it out if he's listening. Jeff Chang, if you're out there, super nice guy who helped let me know
Let's go,
about the
Jeff.
agency that yeah. So the agency that he was working with, which was Aquint, that one I dropped earlier. It's a big one. And so I was like, I'm gonna try because I really want to just get into this field so bad. I'm so passionate about it. The idea of just making things user friendly just sounded really cool. All right, so I get into it and just started applying at local recruiting agencies. And what they did is they just quickly interviewed me and placed me at an interview at one of their clients. And the way it works is so I got the job, which is really exciting, a junior UX designer. So I got the job and they placed me on site at their client, but I was an employee of the recruiting agency, Aquint.
So
Very interesting, right? So
Yeah.
what they do is they actually bill their client X amount, and then they pay you as the employee of their recruiting agency X amount. This is very similar business structure as any agency, right? Like a
Oh,
marketing
yeah,
agency
yeah.
or a software design agent or development agency.
I
So
see.
what
So
they do is they
they're
bill
they're
the maximum
billing.
rate. Yeah,
Okay, they're
they
billing
bill.
for the work, and
Yeah,
then they're taking a huge cut. Oh, okay.
yeah, they bill the maximum rate, and then they pay me what they negotiate on both ends real hard. These are good salespeople, and they negotiate with their
Brutal.
client as much as they possibly can, and then they
Mm-hmm.
try to pay us folks on our end as little as they possibly can. However, it still was really good pay. I mean, my first gig was like $40 an hour. I was stoked. In 2015, getting into a new career, I was so excited. What's interesting is that a lot of these agencies, they have a lot of really quick gigs that they need to get people on board right away. So they work with a lot of marketing and software agencies. So when it comes to like a marketing agency needing to fill a role, which marketing agencies have a ton of turnover. I don't think most people enjoy working at an agency. I have
Yeah,
a lot of firsthand experience. It's not
yeah,
exciting
same.
because you never get to talk to anybody in the client internally. It's all brokered through the agency's project manager with the client's project manager, and your design goes through like 5, 10 hands before you get any kind of feedback, and it's just like this hodgepodge that ends up getting made as a result. It's clearly like design like a committee or design
That's tough. Yeah.
uh, designed by committee sort of a workflow. It's just really odd.
Yeah.
So agencies are recruiting agencies really partner with these marketing agencies, but also big brands. Like I got a chance to interview Disney. I worked for CBS Broadcasting Company, and I was placed there on site as a contracted through via as an employee via the recruiting agency that placed me there at the time. So it's just really unique. However, as I've gone wiser working with these agencies, there's a lot of pros and cons. They definitely will pay you a good rate, but it's expected to be very low if in comparison to if you got your own clients directly. So there's definitely a middleman here. So what I learned, actually, a couple slip ups over the years. One company, a client I was working with on behalf of the recruiter, was accidentally let it slip. They're like, "Oh yeah, I was getting 60 an hour, I think at the time." They said, "Oh yeah, you're getting 120, right?" I was like, "Nope." So that was one. And
Wow.
then another time I asked another client, after we were done working together, I said, "Hey, let's just like write it on a piece of paper and let's just pass it to each other what you were paying. I'll share what I was getting, and I don't know, just kind of open each other's eyes to how this recruiter was working." Similar thing. I was getting about 60 an hour, and they said I think it was like 115 an hour. So it's a relative 2x markup
Wow.
when you work through a recruiting agency. Yeah.
So
it's
a question for you.
Yeah.
Is that when you realized the true value of your work? Like, because like
Absolutely.
when you first get into the design game, you're like, I don't like I'm hearing that I can make good money, but I don't really know. So is that like the moment where you were like, I could be making $100-something an
Yes.
hour doing this stuff?
Yes. And that was even 5-6 years ago. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, I was still kind of, I consider myself a senior level UX designer at that time, like close to it, mid to senior, even though I was
Sure.
getting like a lot of senior roles, like they just needed to fill these, expert roles, and they would just kind of take whoever sounded like they were good at UX, because it was just the wild, wild west of UX at the time. It was just gaining popularity very rapidly. It was like as hot as AI itself these days.
Yeah.
So I've been placed probably 20 times. I've interviewed with recruiters and then been placed on their clients on site. But working with recruiters in the beginning, I highly recommend for anybody getting into a new career. And if I were to do it today, getting to a brand new career, like especially a design pivot, I would definitely bring AI into your world and just really focus on like, how can I be a different kind of specialized designer, like a generative designer. I told some of my other friends, my design friends, like, hey, like you need to be a bit more specialized if you want to maximize your pay. And especially if you want to get a chance to get your own clients directly.
Yeah.
For example, my specialty is actually direct to consumer e-commerce customer acquisition. That's a lot of syllables.
It's so good though. That's so
But
good.
yeah, but what's interesting is there's like also pros and cons to specializing. When you specialize, you will get lesser offers, but when
Sure.
you do get one, it's an amazing offer.
Yeah.
And even though I love freelance, there's an occasional recruiter that still contacts me and they're like, "Here's an offer we have," and I'm like, you have to be like a headhunter, like you're just placing me, right? Like I'm not working for your agency. Like, "Oh no, yeah, you'd be working for us." I'm like, sometimes they're charging like hundreds an hour. What the heck? Like, it's just like I do the math and I'm happy with the pay they're giving me. I'm like, what the heck are they billing them on there? And I'm like, so that still scratched my head. Like, man, specializing is where it's at.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I did in the beginning. Is I just said like I want to specialize in UX. So there just was hardly any people who specialize in that field of design. And so now it's a bit more commoditized, and you definitely have to find a sub niche again. And really, AI is the hype. That's why I say like play with some words like generative designer, whatever can do to sound like you are embracing emerging platforms and technology. That is where I really feel like I started to make strides in my career. And I don't know if you heard of the software OmniGraffle. I think you said you had, right?
I've used it in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. So you use
that was
it,
like one
yeah.
of the main tools that we would all use for wireframing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember working in a team of 6 senior level UX designers at a marketing agency placed by a recruiting agency, by the way. And
Wow.
we were using OmniGraffle to all 6 of us create a just giant wireframe stacks, like page stacks, like we're talking 100 pages easily, 200, 150, maybe 200 pages of the old days of UX, describing like almost like waving your hands, like the interface will go from this to this, right? Like, like you said you had your
Or
share
like
of like,
a
it'll move
landing
this
page
way.
sitemap where it's like
Yeah.
on this page you have all of these things, and then when you go to the home
Yeah.
page you have all of these. I remember these massive sitemaps we'd make on
Yes.
these like super wide papers, dude. We'd like print
Yeah.
them out
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Like
funny.
tabloid, I think they call that 11 by
Yeah,
17. Like
yeah.
we would design them just back for
11 by
that. Like they're just,
17, dude.
yeah,
That
all
was
these
that
call
was the
outs,
good stuff.
all of these call outs throughout the entire document. And I even, it was like, I'm like, this is really how it is. But okay. I just like the money. I was fine with it. So OmniGraffle, if anybody knows, especially that time, had like, there was no prototyping then. I mean, what was up and coming at that time was InVision. InVision,
Right,
which I
right,
guess
right.
they're going out of business now. I think they
Yeah,
are, right?
dude.
Like
Isn't that crazy?
and it happens, man. Like, yeah, they just didn't adapt fast enough. They had InVision Studio, but it just maybe it was too radical at the time, and just not
Yeah.
maybe too similar to Sketch at that time. So this is before Sketch, everybody. Like, you just want to get in soon into a unique field, as specialized as you can be, and learn the tools as soon as you can. Figma, I would say if you're learning Figma now, that's not specialized. That's expected. And so you want to try to go
100%.
after the things that are, yeah, thanks. You want to go after the things that are a little more unexpected experimental tools that are not as widely used. That so a great example of this is probably Webflow. It's becoming more mainstream. Tools like Framer we brought up in the past. Some of it, I see a lot of trends more into companies migrating to very sophisticated tech stacks, like in e-commerce, like this going headless. So I've been involved leading UX in a lot of these like major shifts in tech stack that require more specialized knowledge in some of these other ways of doing design and building with low code or no code, which are these like CMS platforms like Builder. Oh gosh, there's a lot of them. Shogun, but Framer is also putting itself out there like a CMS. But yeah, not to go too much in a tangent there. I just like to give examples of how you can specialize and look for where trends are going. So it's not just AI, but like there's a lot of other things businesses are doing that are kind of still like what's the right word, like getting like dirty, like disorganized, like there's just not a lot of players of other SaaS softwares to make such things organized. And that's where I think like headless commerce is a great area for me, where I specialize in direct to consumer. But I know we're going a little bit off topic.
No. Let me talk about that for 1 second. One of the reasons why I love what you do and why I think it's so important is because what is happening in the design industry now is that we've moved away from exactly what you were talking about, where like a company is going to an agency and paying like $1 million for like a logo, right? And a logo and a brand system. Sorry, not just a logo. Obviously, there's a lot more that comes with that. But there was a time where that was valued so much because it was a primary way that customers interacted with a brand. They would see a logo on a printed billboard. These things still exist today, but one of the main things that people are doing in today's world is what? Like, one is they're shopping online all the time, and they're on social media looking at content and these things. And so any designer now that is able to bring like direct dollars, like to impact the business, to bring direct dollars to the business, is going to be seen as more important than like someone who can put together like a good visual design for something. Because visual design, like you're saying, it can be very subjective, and it's very hard to measure whether that particular thing is transitioning and translating to real dollars for the business. And so what you're doing, where you're actually saying, okay, great, let's like convert this tech stack. The tech stack will have these capabilities. If we use some of these capabilities, this will actually, increase lead generation, and which will, translate to conversion, which will translate to literally you getting XY customers, which means this amount of dollars. Like, that is a thing where businesses can see direct results and go, this guy means more money for our business. And so
exactly, that's why I love it. It's like I get to work in the KPIs, the nitty gritty of the marketing funnel and the analytics, and every step, every interaction is a conversion, right? Like to get further down is a conversion rate, and you're just optimizing every single step, and sometimes removing steps entirely. I'd love to maybe even talk more about like that niche in future episode for sure. Like just direct to consumer is fun. E-commerce in general is quite an industry, and I've been involved with that like 5 going on 6 years. Well, sorry, that's just in working with clients. So my wife and her business that she founded, which is called Education, in case anybody wants to check it out. It's a
Hold for
kids
applause.
subscription. Yeah. Yay. So it's a kids subscription box. But I always like to make fun of her and say that I'm not here to promote her. So, but plugin. And she's just she's awesome. She's brilliant. She's got a good thing going. And I've just been kind of helping here and there along the ride and doing what I do best, like again, like direct to consumer e-commerce, marketing funnel, and like helping her with acquisition. And then, oh my gosh, retention is like a whole other beast. Like, okay, now that you're a customer, now what? All right, well, you sold them something, sell them again. And so, that's when she pivoted to subscription model, and like, okay, but like, how can we sell them like one-time add-ons and all kinds of other things down the road and increase lifetime value? So I'm just dropping a little more of why I like this realm, especially is because there's so many ways to validate how your design is performing. And going back to why just graphic design wasn't really for me, although I did like the artistic side of it. Photoshop was fun, but being able to see how you influence a business is really, really, really exciting. And I think that's just more because I'm very entrepreneurial. I see myself as a full stack designer, product designer, as we were debating before this call, but perhaps we'll have a future final debate. But well, I like to, I see myself as a solutions designer, like a business problems, solutions person, really. Like, I think you can think creatively around all that stuff, and like it doesn't always have to be about the UI in front of you.
Has that helped with recruiting, like with recruiters? Like, I know that now I think you go and get your own clients, but when you started to specialize, was that something that you felt like were recruiters able to sink their teeth into that more, or did it affect that outcome at all?
Yeah, I can do it more. Definitely my portfolio website needs some love. I need to paint that specialty all over it. And you and I have talked, like, you give me feedback on my portfolio, and I agree. It needs some love. It's pretty old. It's built on Squarespace, which like nobody really uses Squarespace. If you are a designer using Squarespace, you get out of there, right? Just get the heck out of there. All right. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. But like, try something else, please. I mean, Webflow is very comprehensive. I don't recommend it. I tried it. It's really hard.
It's super robust, but
it's
more.
It's a lot of learning. A lot. So unless you want to specialize in that software, there's a lot of jobs out there, of course. But an easier segue is this one that Charles and I are talking about. I'm just sort of trying to find a quick project to try it out with. I think I got one or two. Even my wife's company, we're looking at possibly moving into this for the front end CMS side. Is Framer. I'm really, really excited to try that one out. But yeah, specializing in a software that's not so widely used again is where my recommendation is. Figma is a must. You do have to know that right now.
It is the screen, the digital design tool. Like, gotta use it.
I feel for sure that specializing more in tools that overlap a lot with Figma, like these CMS tools, like Builder and Framer, that like you almost don't really need Figma as much, right? Like, it's like you definitely at some point you want to decide, are you a web designer or are you a native app designer, right? Like, to do both is very different, in my opinion. And especially when you're talking about hardware, like when you're doing native apps, you definitely better be factoring in, oh gosh, what's the little component that senses like gravity and stuff? Is that the gyrometer? Is that the right one? You should know. You worked at the Apple Store, didn't you, sir?
The gyroscope.
I thought it was gyrometer. Maybe it's gyroscope.
No.
I think
There's something.
Right. Yeah.
Now you got me confused. It's frick. I don't know. We'll think about it.
I thought you were didn't you work as a transponder and worked on gyrometers? I thought you did that.
But no, I agree with you too, by the way, because I think it's different working at a tech company, because you'll usually work on both, because you'll try and develop a product experience. Like, you'll work on a particular feature and you'll work on it for both design and mobile sometimes. And then sometimes there will be a mobile team. Sometimes there'll be a web team, but especially if you're freelancing, I think, again, specialize in something so that you kick ass at that particular thing. Totally agree.
So that's kind of where I've chosen to go, just web. I'm basically just saying I'm a web designer again. Although like I worked at CBS broadcasting company. Everybody thinks I'm always talking about CVS, the drug company. I'm like, no, that's not the one. Although that would have been cool.
That would be so great.
I don't enunciate the best.
CBS.
Yeah. So CB as in boy. Yes. That was a really great a place to work. I loved it. It was
Really cool.
It was a waterfall culture, you know, like we had the very nice
Sure.
siloed creative team. It was just like the most eclectic, esoteric LA crew. Like everybody was so
Awesome.
different and unique, and like, oh man, like age wise, just experience wise, like interests, and like one guy came from like comic book industry, and like people are into records, and just like the best part of LA, I gotta say, like just super hip people.
Cool.
I worked in their emerging platforms department, which was just strictly the native apps that they were at that time was CBS All Access streaming, which is now Paramount Plus. But that was in 2015, 2016. So that just shows how old I am in my career. But like I still have great friends that I keep in touch with. My direct supervisor, she's so great. Just one of the best people, one of the most fun, exciting, best people I ever worked with, and we all left on good terms. It was awesome. So that was again a place I was placed with recruiters, and so that kind of to sum it up, working with recruiters, I was broke. Everybody, I was living at my mom's house with my wife and 2 kids. I could not have felt more down. But through recruiters in the fashion I had mentioned, where it's like a recruiting agency, I went from $0 income to 200,000 salary in 6 months. And that was because I just took whatever work I could that they were willing to offer through recruiters, and all the pay wasn't that great. Every time I took a new gig, like every 1 to 2 month gig, I increased my hourly by about $5 each time. And that scales up pretty nicely at $5 each increment. And I was very fortunate in my very early 30s to hit that north of the 6-figure income. I was just very proud of myself. Now that's like a much different world now as we've specialized, right? Like now we're like, okay, how many multiples of 6 figures can we get into? And I just want to remind everybody to think unlimited when it comes to your salary, your career. It's been great to catch up with Charles and be humbled by, just like we're sharing a little bit of figures on the side. We're not gonna do that today, but he and I've been getting more personal, like what he makes, what I make, and it's been really cool to understand like the potential, right? When you find out like a good friend of yours who's good in your career, and you hear like they're making way more than you are, it's like it's really cool. I'm like, dang. So that again, like kind of like we're going back to when I realized the potential of what I was getting paid as a recruiter and versus where I can be. I mean, like, man, like it working with you again is just kind of to help open my eyes again to I haven't been, I kind of like hit a ceiling or something. Like I need to really step it up, especially in freelance. And I need to like double, triple where I think I should be financially. And I want everybody to always think about how you can double, triple where you think you should be financially. I know a lot of friends and family who are in design field, and they're very comfortable with, 80,000 a year salary. And that's good. But in design, like that should be like a starting point. And if you've been in it for years, you need to consider much, much higher. Yeah. Really, it's a value perception where you place yourself out with your rate, and you need to do that when negotiating with these recruiters. It's easy for them to still, in this day and age, send you an hourly rate of 40, 50, because UX has become much more commoditized. They can easily give you that much lower rate. I know it was when I was a few months back looking for work, was considering a job, at the time, considering a job, and it was similar to what I was getting in 2015. I'm like, what changed? What the heck is so different? And I took some time to think. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still the same person I was. I'm basically still offering a lot of the same services I was. It's just the software is different. It's not OmniGraffle or Sketch or XD. Now it's Figma and other publishing tools. And so that's where I realized, okay, I gotta learn, I gotta get training again and soak up like a sponge like I used to. And that's where I've been lately, and starting to see some more traction in freelance and just offers in general that come my way. So the more you specialize, the more you can definitely increase that salary. Let me just check my notes here real quick. And if you have any questions,
No,
about
I was
this
gonna
different style of recruiting, let me know.
no, I was gonna ask what you thought some of the challenges and some of the good stuff, some of the bad stuff for working with recruiters,
Oh, it's definitely
pros and
a
cons.
lot of rejection. So it's already
Mm-mm.
hard enough to get rejection when you're looking on your own. Which, by the way, just to remind, if you're working with a recruiter, there is no exclusivity. They just ask for you the right to represent you, but it doesn't mean you can't also look on your own. You're just doubling
Mm.
your efforts when you work with a recruiter, and it's just kind of a race to see the higher rate that you can get. So,
I
but
think
they're still tough sometimes. Oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
no, I was gonna say, I think this also applies to this is just a side note for people that are working at companies. If you have, I work at Microsoft. I've worked there for 7 years.
Awesome.
It's not a bad thing to have conversations with people. You're not cheating on a company if you just have a conversation with another company, because
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're building a muscle of understanding where the design landscape is at, what people's expectations are, and then if something else comes along that you're like, oh, you know what, that kind of thing would make me really happy as a designer and I'd love to work on something like that, like those conversations are okay. It doesn't mean that you only start having those conversations when you are ready to jump ship. Like you just always have conversations with people. You're not doing like full on gauntlet interviews, but you're just like, yeah, let me have a conversation with a recruiter or design manager over here. And it's good. It's just good knowledge for you to have as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of designers I've met before where I think it's hard for them to want to do that because they feel like they're doing something wrong. You're not doing anything
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, don't let guilt get in your way. And
Yeah,
I admire so much that you had a job at one company for 7 years. That's actually
dude.
in my experience pretty rare in the tech industry of all places, because we all are
Super
like
rare. Super
we all
rare.
like to be hip and like, move
Yeah.
on, have a lot of change. I think that's just natural for a designer, to just have a constant like different influx of work
Yeah.
and all that. And so if you don't mind me asking, like what has it been that's kept you there all this time? Like they must clearly be treating you well. Like, and I know you, man, you must have been having some offers. You just know people, and like you must have had offers come your way from recruiters or just
Yeah.
colleagues or anything. And like, what is it that's kept you to want to stay at that job all this time?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. One, and a lot of people will know and understand this too, is you age, your priorities change. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
when I
totally.
was younger, when we first were in the Bay Area, I was all about startups. I was all about getting it at the ground floor, wearing a bunch of hats, trying to develop this and build this company from the ground up with these other founders that I really respected, and building something that was really really great. And then hopefully, statistically speaking, not great statistics, but hopefully getting a payout at the end of it by selling some company to some other larger company or whatever. That was kind of like the goal. And then generational wealth, all these great things, right? And so when I was younger, moving around startups, working super hard, like it's great. We didn't have a kid yet, like we were pretty newly married, all that stuff. So
I remember
it
you
was
working at a startup. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. So I think I've worked at one, two. I've probably worked at like seven, like six or seven startups
Yeah,
from when I
wow.
started. Yeah, yeah, and that was exactly like you were saying. I was jumping around every 2 years, 1 or 2 years,
Yeah,
like just
that's
because
pretty normal. Yeah.
it's so yeah, it's so accelerated. You're working through something, and then what happens from a start, like when a startup changes in phases, like it goes from being a small company, right, 5 people, to a company of 20, and then it goes to a company of 50, and then each of those phases is really tough. It can be really
Well,
tough because culture changes, process changes, there's not a level of intimacy anymore based
yeah.
on the company being 5 people, et cetera. So these phases change. Sometimes they're great, and sometimes you're willing to work through them, and those are the people that are going to make it out at the end. And then sometimes you're like, you know what, this isn't quite right for me anymore. So then eventually, after startups, I met some guy on Twitter, saw that he was hiring at Microsoft, and that was when we had our kid. We knew we wanted to move to LA, and I wanted something very stable. I wanted something that honestly didn't require as much responsibility and work from me anymore. I wanted to be able to work on things and do a good job, but I did not want to work until 2 a.m. I didn't want to work 60 hours a week. Like I no
Yeah.
longer needed those were not the priority anymore. It was my wife, it was my daughter, and it was the best part of my life, which was outside of work. So I wanted everything to feed that part of it. And so yeah, got this gig at Microsoft. They paid well. I think another thing about working at a big tech company too is you get stock. And so I get a stock grant. I get starting to unfold some of these things. I get a stock grant every year. Like I get a cash bonus and some stock every single year from working at Microsoft. And then sometimes you'll get a special stock reward too if you're like doing a good enough job or whatever. But these are the things that keep you at big tech companies. People call them golden handcuffs for a reason, because
you can build wealth around that, man. Like
yeah,
you can build wealth around that. I heard recently, maybe you and I talked about it a little bit, but like you can I've heard crazy things like Jeff Bezos does with his stock shares in his company, like in Amazon and everything. Like you can actually take a loan from as like and have your stocks as collateral. I don't know if Microsoft allows that or anything. That's very interesting that you could. And what's amazing is you can use that to buy a house or like all kinds of stuff, right? Like, and it becomes like quick access to cash. What I hear that people like Jeff Bezos does is like it's like income for him tax free. It's like they take debt and paying back the debt is far less than the tax they would incur. Again, I know too much about the tax game.
And we know that full well because we took out a bunch of stock to pay for part of our house. We did a big down payment on our house. We live in LA, so it's very expensive. And we had a big old fat tax bill at the end of the next year.
Next time, try looking into that, taking a loan instead. You wouldn't have to get rid of the asset. You wouldn't have to sell the asset. Like so, that's just so everybody knows the rich write the rules. As I read in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he says, like he's like I follow the golden rule. He who has the gold, he or she, of course, who has the gold, writes the rules. And I thought that was so fascinating.
So good.
So it's just an example of what you can do with things like that. But I know that's for more of a tax podcast. But yeah, man, that's really awesome. And I love that you get a little personal there and talk about how you set your personal life as priority. That's actually a bit of a reason why I chose more freelance, and it's complementary to working in my wife's business still. Like I work for her. She is my boss. If we have a disagreement, I have to do what she says. A good marriage counselor helped me with that. But it's it's nice because I have flexibility, but most importantly, I can be available for my kids anytime. And so I'm right there with you, man. Like it's important to prioritize yourself and be flexible. And and so we kind of went in quite a circle, but recruiters is another way to get you to the career you want. And as you know, there's many different ways of going about it. I have been placed by Headhunter as well. I did forget there was one time I actually got placed at AAA, that insurance company nationwide.
Nice.
You gotta get towed, of course, and so that was one gig I did get placed with a pretty good income, and it was just there was no working through the recruiting agency. So there's all different flavors. So now you guys know, and if you have any questions about it, we'd always love to hear about it. We'd love any feedback on this podcast anytime. We love doing this stuff, but we would probably love even more to answer questions and talk about our experience on how we can help any of you just do better in your career, or just want to be a better dad. you got two experienced guys with that too. So and how to choose your life over work always. I just want to remind everybody that what's a lot of us define work as our purpose and our meaning, and it's so secondary. It's so secondary to the legacy you create. So appreciate anybody out there who's been listening today. This is episode 4 of the ICANN Has Design podcast, and really appreciate everybody. And have a great week. We'll see you next time. Awesome, man.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah. All right. See you, man.
See ya.